This episode is brought to you by DistroKid. DistroKid is the easiest way for musicians to get their music into all the platforms. Amazon, Apple, Tidal, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Plus, you've got unlimited uploads, and the artist keeps 100% of what they make. But what I love most about DistroKid is their app. The design of it just makes the whole process so easy. Now you can be sure that you're doing everything you need to do to get your music out there. Go to distrokid.com to check it out or download the app now.
Allow me to live and breathe like a man.
You've heard his words on classic albums like Pacific Ocean Blue and Friends. His 1969 collaboration with Brian Wilson, A World of Peace Must Come, gained almost legendary status as one of pop's most storied lost albums, before being resurrected to great acclaim by Light in the Attic in 2008. Now you're cordially invited to take a trip into the mind of poet and songwriter Stephen J. Kalinich. Heyday Again Records presents I Love My Life, a postcard from one of the last standing poets of peace and excitation. Order your copy today. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich and Friends. You'll see why heavy hitters like Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Paul McCartney, Steve Cropper, P.F. Sloan, and Diana Ross have all worked with him. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich. Order today at realgonemusic.com. Again, that's realgonemusic.com. The second single from Future Prophet Records is here. Birthday Girl presents Never the Sound, available right now on Future Prophet Records. That's Future, Prophet, records.com. Order now. This was a time in history when the coming generation was truly embracing that, and that became really the foundation of that movement, is that the hippies and especially the musicians and the artists of that time were not only embracing it, but would just follow those tendrils of happenstance into their future. I mean, this would become how people would live their lives.
The whole concept of saying yes to having a 45-year-old drummer in your band, and like everybody is like less than 20 years old. I mean, just saying yes to that in the first place is a crazy thing. And even for him to say yes, to do it.
Welcome to Discograffiti, the deep dive podcast for music obsessives that gives freaks like you and me the chance to connect with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebroe, and with 3 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on Spirit, Psst, along with our special guest, band biographer Ryan Gabrinetti. This is part 1, which covers the incredible story of the band's early days, which leads up to the release of one of the greatest debut albums of all time. Here are just a few of the many things that Ryan discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. How guitarist and songwriter Randy California wound up crossing paths with Jimi Hendrix in a life-changing moment as a teenager that set him on his path for the rest of his life. How a teenage kid wound up playing in a band with his 45-year-old stepfather in an era when you were supposed to distrust anyone over 30. How Mamas and the Papas producer Lou Adler wound up taking the band under his wing. The lawsuit with Led Zeppelin over Stairway to Heaven and the Spirit song which they allegedly stole for it. The lawsuit with Led Zeppelin over Stairway to Heaven and the Spirit song which they allegedly stole for it. And an in-depth deep dive on every song off Spirit, their 1968 debut record. Coming up, we've got incredible deep dive series on Lenny Waronker, Love, Jefferson Airplane, and a hell of a lot more. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and subscribe. For over 4 years now, Discograffiti's Friday episodes have been completely free, and it's been my pleasure. But for a variety of reasons, Discograffiti's now moved to the subscription-based Patreon as our primary platform. Moving forward, our public stream will feature a teaser of the Friday episode and a Tuesday teaser of the bonus episode, and that's all. But here's the good news. Only $5 a month will get you the weekly Friday podcast to which you become accustomed. That's it. It's a no-brainer at just $1 an episode. And just that little bit will be what's required to help the show survive. To sweeten the pot, you'll also get regular installments of the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. That's Rudy Fishman's podcast within a podcast featuring our Patreon members as guests. You'll also get access to over 100 back episodes of that show. The $10 Lieutenant tier gets you all that, plus access to half of the Patreon archive. That's hundreds of additional episodes, plus copies of my personal show notes, which include invaluable research, star ratings, and reviews. But the $20 major tier is the place to be, unless you can support the show on even higher tiers, which, if you can afford it, offers substantial perks, including advertising on the show and selecting the guests and artists I cover. With the major tier and above, you get it all. The Monday bonus episodes, aka the best stuff, the Friday show, the Soldiers of Sound podcast, plus access to the entire archive. That's many hundreds of Patreon episodes, an absolutely endless barrage of music entertainment, including 50 episodes of The Private Press with Paul Major, Rock Cousteau, Queasy Listening, and so much more. This tier will also be the only way to access the entire upcoming Spirit series, the entire Love series, the entire Lenny Waronker series, and the entire Jefferson Airplane series. Frankly, it'll keep you busy for the rest of your life. So support the podcast that's been supporting you for years. Discograffiti's calling, and it needs you, so don't risk feeling guilty by not giving. But enough of me yapping. Go on, subscribe now. Visit patreon.com/discograffiti and find the tier that's right for you. And away we go then! So if you're listening and for whatever reason you just don't know who Spirit is, Spirit was a rock band founded in 1967, at least the Spirit who started recording, founded in 1967, based in LA. They were an ambitious psych band. You could almost say proto-prog, formed by an eclectic group of musicians with backgrounds in and stylistic tendencies toward a wildly eccentric blend of rock, pop, jazz, blues, folk rock, and even a bit of classical and Indian music. And like the Dynamite band Kaleidoscope, the American version that is, even though the UK Kaleidoscope is incredible, the American Kaleidoscope just so eclectic. Same as them, Spirit seemed determined to out-eclecticize everybody else on the California psychedelic scene. So let's introduce first the characters in today's episode. The main characters are what's, kind of defined as the classic era of Spirit, which is Randy California on guitar and vocals, Ed Cassidy on drums, John Locke on keyboards, Mark Andes on bass guitar and vocals, and Jay Ferguson on vocals, percussion, keyboards, and guitar. So Randy says, my only guitar was lost in shipping, and what a stroke of luck that was. In mid-June, looking to replace my guitar, I paid a visit to Manny's Music in Manhattan. It was there in the back of the store, jamming on a white Stratocaster, I saw Jimmy James. Our eyes met, and time seemed to stop. We ended up jamming together for the next few hours, and Jimmy asked me to join his new band, Jimmy James and the Blue Flames. We became the house band at the Café Wa in Greenwich Village, and our gig there lasted 3 months. By fall of '66, Jimmy had an offer to go to England. He asked me to join him, but my parents said no way. I was only 15 at the time, and so I bid farewell to my guitar-playing comrade. He went off to form the Experience, and our family headed back to the West Coast. In fact, Hendrix gave Randy Wolf, which was his name, the nickname Randy California, to distinguish him from from Randy Palmer, whom Hendrix named Randy Texas. By late 1967, the entire band, wives, girlfriends, cats, and dogs, shared one big yellow house in Topanga Canyon, a beautiful rural setting an hour's drive north of Hollywood, just off the Pacific Coast Highway. The inspiration for many of the songs on the first album came from our lives together in Topanga Canyon. The upstairs living room, whose windows overlooked Topanga Creek and beautiful sunlit oak trees, was also our designated rehearsal hall. It was there 5 days a week that the band got together to explore, experiment, share, offer support for each other's ideas, and most of all, feel the joy of letting go and becoming as one. So, like I said before, the early demo recordings by the band were produced by their roommate, Barry Hansen, also called Dr. Demento, which leads us into Phase 1, Simply Not Meant to Be, the so-called classic lineup. That's 1967 to 1971. So I know August 67 is when Lou signed them to Ode Records. What were the circumstances? Where did it happen? Did the band come down to where he was and play at the studio? Or
the story that's been related is that they auditioned for him at the Whiskey sometime in the afternoon. You know, they just set up on the stage and, you know, they were just there by themselves, ready. Door opens. Lou Adler walks in, sits down, they play their whatever bit, he stands up, walks out the door, didn't say a word to them. And it was maybe a day or a couple days later that they got word that they got offered a contract. And it was within a day or two that they were in the studio. Ironically enough, the first track that they recorded was Uncle Jack. That was the first thing that they actually cut.
You said the next day they were in the studio?
It was within a couple days.
So I know that they started recording August 31st. So that means...
Yeah, I've looked at the contract. I think it was signed on like the 29th or the 30th, something like that. We'll probably get into this a few different times, but Lou is a really important figure in Spirit's story. I mean, just from all the way top down, because, you know, he's the producer on their albums, he's their management, and he's their label. You know, it's like the whole vertical integration.
Was he good for them? From what I understand, by the end of the ride in the early 70s, he treated them like a possession, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can definitely get to that at the end of, you know, that's like clear Sardonicus era. But, you know, one quote that I found from Lou Adler, and this is probably contemporary to the band, he said that he signed Spirit because he wanted a piece of the underground.
Right.
That's what he said.
Got it.
So, so like,
so he didn't give a rat's ass about them.
Well, like based on what he was doing up until that point, Jan and Dean, Mamas and Papas, you know, Herb Alpert, you know, these are like hit single bands. These are like pop bands that operated on singles. If you could imagine Summer of Love, you know, they're living communally, they're playing music every day, they're like creating something new. It's like psychedelics are involved, you know, and just all of this newness of that period. It's so idyllic, and they really show it to you on this record.
So Taurus is the one that everyone knows because this stupid lawsuit is dragged on and on and on. But, you know, I don't want to. Yeah, I know. I don't want to get too bogged down in the lawsuit aspect. I mean, yes, there is a descending guitar part in it.
Right.
That if you squint, you can see that maybe it inspired it, but I don't think they stole it. I mean, Led Zeppelin were thieves, but I think they preferred stealing from black guys.
I think you're right about that.
All right, that about does it. To hear the full episode, just visit patreon.com/discograffiti and either subscribe as a private or higher, or just purchase it as a one-off. If you are a fan of the show, please do one of those two to help ensure Discograffiti's continued existence. Stay tuned, because next week brings upon us the next installment of our Graham Nash interview series. It's Graham in a revealing deep dive discussion on his classic first solo album, Songs for Beginners. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then come Tuesday, the major tier gets a very special treat. Tuesday's bonus episode is Spirit Part 2, wherein the band release albums 2 and 3, The Family That Plays Together, and Clear, not to mention the soundtrack for the 1968 film Model Shop. There will be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Tuesday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Ryan Gabrinetti, Randy California, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, my mom, my dad, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, and access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the classic rock and roll from the 1960s is to go to the Beach Boys Season 1, Catch a Wave, 1961 to 1964, from episode 189 on, the Righteous Brothers Bill Medley interview, that's 181 and 182, my interview with the Free Design, that's 160 to 162, my epic interview with the Mamas and Papas Michelle Phillips, that's 141 to 159, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, that's 137, my 12-hour interview with Terry Kirkman and Jules Alexander from the Association, that's 109 to 113, Vashti Bunyan reading her entire output, that's 103 to 104. Sergio Diaz from Os Mutantes, that's 86 and 87. Bert Summer, that's 83 and 84. Sweetwater is episode 79. A tribute to David Crosby, 77 and 78. Andrew Tuttle rates the Monks, 74. Jim Florentine on Black Sabbath is 64 to 68. Lou Barlow on the Zombies is 59 and 60. Marvin Gaye biographer David Ritz rates Marvin Gaye, that's 45 to 47. Blind Faith is 43. Anthony Fantano rates the Velvet Underground, it's 32 and 33. Bob Forrest rates the band is 25 and 27. Monkees manager Andrew Sandoval rates the Monkees, that's 22 and 23. Don Randy rates David Axelrod is 17. Badfinger is 16. The Bee Gees is 10 and 11. Sly and the Family Stone is 5, 6, and 7. And Pink Floyd is 1 and 2. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, January 16th, we're coming at you with Graham Nash's deep dive on his classic debut solo LP, Songs for Beginners. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!